What if I told you that you could set a boundary and feel absolutely no guilt about it? What if you could feel completely unbothered the moment you say no to somebody? Not a single nerve is clenching. By the end of this video, you'll reframe your understanding of boundaries and particularly your feeling of guilt, and understand why actually your feeling of guilt might be misplaced. My name is Alex. I'm a somatic and mindfulness coach, and I've been exactly where you are today. I used to be quite a lot of a people pleaser, and I used to feel a lot of guilt when saying no to people. And sometimes this might not even have come from my own no. So it could happen, for instance, that a person A asked me something that doesn't allow me to do something else for person B. And I have to say no to person B because I need to do this other service for person A. And I would feel horribly guilty to do that. Although I just can't multiply myself and do both things for both people. But I would feel tremendous guilt. I would feel like the other person might feel undervalued or perhaps not supported enough, and like I'm favoring somebody else over the other person. But it's just that the person A had stronger pressure on me or a stronger connection with me, and I had to absolutely serve that other person. So imagine when I started to actually set boundaries for myself and not because other people asked me to, then that became even worse. I felt even more guilt when I used to do that, especially in the first times. The thing is, I started second guessing myself. And the thoughts that came to my mind usually was, did I do the right thing? Am I a good person? And that's where it is. The question of, am I a good person? What does this question actually mean? When we ask ourselves that, we're looking into what the norms are. And to understand what are we comparing ourselves to is very important to understand what are the norms that we're looking at when we actually feel those feelings. So maybe just also to clarify what is guilt. When we say that we feel guilty, what does that actually mean? Guilt is a feeling of transgression of a norm or a social norm that kind of in our mind, it's a perceived norm. So in our mind, it organizes society. And when we feel that we transgress this norm, we usually feel guilty. So coming back to this idea of norm, what is exactly the norm that we're talking about and where does it come from? And very important question here as well is this norm serving us? And very often the answer is no, particularly if you're a woman. So let's look into what are the sources of this norm. So there's mainly three areas where we learn is family, it's friends and close circle, and finally it's also society. So these are the three areas where we learn what a good person should be. We also learn this subconsciously, not only through transferred information or talking, it's also by seeing others' behavior or adapting our behavior without us really noticing. So particularly the subconscious area, not only the subconscious, also the transfer of knowledge verbally, but particularly subconscious happens with the family. So that's where we learn, for instance, if one of our parents is a bit emotionally fluctuating or suddenly has anger outbursts or sadness, we learn to cope with it by adjusting ourselves to their emotional state. So we learn to please our parents, we learn to be accommodating for them and to soothe them when they're feeling sad or angry. So this teaches us that to be loved or to be useful, we need to become of service and constantly adapt ourselves. And by doing this, we're also putting our own selves towards less important or less priority, because our priority is to cater for our own parent. So this is one way that this norm, or what we perceive as a norm, gets imprinted in our brains. So that's really important. So parents, whether conscious or unconscious. Now, with friends and our close social circle, that's school, that's our extended family, these are also very important environments where we experience a lot, we learn a lot, particularly if we come from another culture, from the culture where we grew up. That, for instance, also leads us to understand that we need to fit in and we need to take on some of the knowledge, culture, characteristics of the majority group. So by doing this, again, what it tells our brain is we put our own personality as a less priority than the group personality. So again, this diminishes us in the order of priority that we perceive in the group, in the society. So in these social groups, it is sometimes even considered unsafe for you to be yourself. Very often, no one taught us, not to our parents, how to behave naturally and authentically and how to own your difference and stand up for it. So usually, in these cases, we tend to choose the other way, which is the safest way to abandon ourselves or deprioritize ourselves to prioritize the majority. And then the third one is society. So this can come through various channels. It can come through movies, literature, things we read. It can come from culture, history, and just generally media and events that are happening and the way these events are interpreted in the general society. So these are all the things that surround us in a broader sense. And there, particularly if you're a woman, you're probably used to understand that a woman needs to be accommodating, a woman needs to be of service, and very frequently a woman needs to sacrifice herself in order to serve her family, the kids, to support the husband, and all of these things. I know that these sound like archaic ways of seeing the family unit. However, they're still very present, even though we evolve these days and the family, the understanding of the role of the woman evolves. These ideas are still floating out there and they kind of permeate into a lot of things. And even in our brains, although we want to believe something else, it's very often the case that we do still integrate subconsciously these ideas, although we don't agree with them. It's very important to understand. So sometimes when we think of the norm for us, some of these ideas might still lurk in our brains somewhere. And the idea that a woman can't get angry, a woman can swear in public, and all of these things, they still are there. So it's important to also understand that. And another thing that's very important here is there's a link here very strongly between society and family, because society has permeated these norms that I'm talking about, these quite archaic ideas about how family should be. It was extremely present for our parents and particularly our grandparents. And in our family unit, this societal norm has fed very strongly all the ideas that we got from our parents. And again, as you remember, a lot of these ideas are communicated to us unconsciously from our parents. So it's not something we consciously integrate and learn. It's not like they told us a story and we remember it. Instead, is by looking at their behavior, we understand that this is the behavior we should be doing as well. So just from this, what you need to understand is that guilt is coming out from all of these norms that we get from these sources. And anytime we consciously or subconsciously transgress any of these norms that are rooted in our brain, we feel the guilt. That's where it pops out. So again, what is important here is to examine the norms to see whether they make still sense, because a lot of the things that we actually take as granted make no sense to us today. So that's where it's important to understand. So I've cleaned my little board here because I have another interesting drawing to do for you. And this time let's get more practical in it. So let's understand how we manage our energy when we're a child versus when we're an adult. This is very important to understand how not to feel guilty when you need to set a boundary. So when you're a kid, and this is your parent, Your energy is very much connected to that of your parent. So the parent has an energy, you have an energy, and they are strongly, strongly connected here. So you're kind of part of the responsibility of your parent. So essentially, you are dependent. So their ability to regulate their emotions, their ability to regulate their nervous system, anytime they come into outbursts and all of that, it strongly affects you. And you don't have a choice about it. You are basically under their responsibility. It's a survival thing. If you're not under their responsibility, you're a child, you're not yet able to live on your own in a society. So, as a survival approach or a coping mechanism, you learn to manage and fit into the emotions of your parent. Of course, if your parent is very stable and regulated, have a very stabilized nervous system, is able to understand your feelings, your emotions without getting too absorbed by them, then you don't have an issue. But in most cases you do, because your parent would be probably a little bit unregulated, would have anger outbursts or depression or feeling some sort of issues either in the relationship with the other parent or something like that. So, as a response, the coping mechanism that you learn is people pleasing. This is an integrated coping mechanism that you do to be able to manage your parent. And this can also happen for other areas like school, like friends, and etc. Sometimes it happens there first and then it happens in the family, but very often the family is the starting point for that people-pleasing mechanism to start. And in addition to that, you start to integrate these ideas from society that to be a good person, you need to be of service to others. Or the more you serve, the better you are, which is the norm that is created and imprinted in your head, which when is transgressed is the thing that causes your guilt to happen. So then you become an adult. So now you're a grown up, you became an adult, but you continue to have the same relationship with other people, including your parents, but also other people, your friends and everybody. So what happens is that these people take a lot of your energy. They take a lot of your space. And they are all under your responsibility in your mind. So you are keeping these people happy and your parent happy still. Nothing changed. It's like when you were a kid. You're still keeping them happy. You still want to have them more or less regulated, not going into sadness, not going into anger or any other excessive emotions that they might go through as per their habit. So you have a lot on your plate. Who is taking care of that person? What happens is when you give away all this energy here, you are waiting for them to give it back because there's no way you are filling that cup yourself. Only they can feel it because you give out all of your energy to others. There's no more left for you. In addition, this norm, this idea that you need to serve others, is keeping you stuck in this. You're keeping yourself stuck in this idea that you need to serve others to be a good person. So this is what keeps you in this loop of depleting yourself and giving your energy away all the time. And when doing this, you're expecting others to give it back to you in return. Let's go a little bit more in detail into how energy works on an individual level. So like, what is your energy battery? Like your energetic battery, social energy, your action energy, all of that. So you are here and you have this battery here, and this is your entire energy stock, right? And what happens is you have various levels in that energy reserve. And you have some energy here in the bottom that is your critical reserve. And the thing is, what happens is, when you have people pleasing, you give away even the critical reserve. So the last amount that usually is serving yourself for survival. You're giving that away to other people. What happens then is that energy, since it's a survival energy for you, emotional survival, emotional stability, that thing that keeps you in a good shape, that keeps you from being overreactive, that keeps your nervous system regulated, once that is gone, you can't give it away for free. So when you give away that energy, you expect that energy to come back to you from other people. So it's not free. It's demanding return. I'm putting money on it, but it could be money, it could be some sort of service from the other person that you gave it to. So it's not really giving without expecting anything in return. It's this more kind of toxic way to give. You know, it's a way of giving while expecting somebody to give it back to you. So it's not really the pure goodness of our heart that we expect it to be, right? As opposed to this, when you give away from this area of your battery, so imagining this whole area is full here, you're giving it from here, this is free energy because you have quite a lot of it in reserve and you can give it away for free without actually even expecting anything to happen. But this entire part of your battery, it's your own responsibility to fill it up. You can't expect anybody else to fill this part but for yourself. So that's where this whole norm thing, where it says that you need to serve others, you need to sacrifice yourself for others, makes no sense anymore. Because basically what you're doing is that you're depleting all of the energy and then your giving away is not free, right? So what you need to do is, when you say to be a good person, you need to serve, you need to include yourself in the people you need to serve as the first recipient of your help, of your service. It's just that we only say we need to serve others, but actually we need to serve everybody, and everybody includes you. So that's where the first part of your service is to fill up this part. Once that part is filled, then you are free. And also you'll feel it because you don't feel like it's a duty anymore. You actually just want to do it. It becomes something where you want to serve others because your cup is so full. And you're ready to do that because you don't need anybody to tell you you would be a good person if you did that. No, it's just naturally flowing out of you. If it's not naturally flowing out of you and it's a voice in your head that's saying you should do this because you should do this, otherwise you're a bad person, that's where you need to ask yourself question if you're not giving away from the red zone here. So be very careful with this. And this is exactly how the norm should be in our mind. The thing is, most cases, the norm is very centered on this idea of service to others without including yourself as part of that service, which is such an important miss. So that's where question your norms. Question what you think is the right thing to do, what makes a good or a bad person. So the thing is, once you reframe your idea of the norm, this will automatically reframe your idea of where the guilt should come in. Because the guilt, if you remember, comes in as soon as you think you transgress some sort of norm that is imprinted in your head. So if you change that imprint to a more balanced way of seeing things and relationship with people, to an understanding that the way you did things before was based in a coping mechanisms because you had no choice. You had no other way to be as a child in that environment. However, now as an adult, you have that choice again. And this is where a little work to rewire your subconscious mind, to rewire your mechanisms that you have since a while, and to reframe your idea of the norm, what should be the right thing to do towards a more balanced way of seeing things. That is where you're going to change your entire way of seeing things, and your guilt is just not going to happen because you know what is right and wrong, and you know that you didn't transgress anything that should create any guilt when you set a boundary. All right, thank you so much for watching this video. And if you liked it, please consider liking, commenting, or subscribing to my channel. I really love you to comment on my videos because I really like to create a community around these topics, and particularly this one is so important. And if you want more on this topic, I have a video about what it is to be a good person, and it's really connected to this topic today. So just click on the link here that will appear about this video. And otherwise, I also have a free masterclass that's linked in the description of this video. It's about how to create boundaries, how to reframe your idea of responsibilities. It's very much connected to our topic today, and you just can reach it by clicking in the description of this video. All right, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.